Mhm.
Yeah, we talked about that with Tim, the big I believe Mike Ross moment,
Mhm.
and that when he had the Sagat in the corner and he did the jab headbutt and baited him and did the ultra. Like, yeah, like I put that. Once I saw that was a thing, I was just like, yeah, that was added into my repertoire, and I actually used that in my first money match at Evo against somebody,
Nice.
and pulled that in front of my friends, and I was just like, that was one of like the most hyped things. Like, I really wish I had like a recording of that, but like just to do that in front of people, in front of somebody that challenged me, and I was like, oh, I'm pulling out all the bullshit now. And like, yeah, to do that against his like Cody and exact situation, put him in the corner, jab headbutt, and then he's like, I see the rock get thrown, and I'm just like, nope, ultra coming right through. Like that was
Nice.
one of my favorite things ever.
Nice. Hello, and welcome to the Absolute Guard podcast.
Welcome. This is episode 35. My name is Benny, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host John, who I think is somewhat having a character crisis when it comes to Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of characters that I think are really interesting to me for 6 in particular. When I played the beta, like every character just seemed fun. Even the Shotos seemed fun, and I'm not really much of a Shoto player.
Yeah.
And then most recently they showed I'm a Chun Li main by from Street Fighter 5, but and I was really interested in Chun Li in Street Fighter 6, and I still pretty much am. But Cammy Cammy seemed really interesting to me too, in case Chun Li is too hard. I also am interested in JP, like the Zoner character. That's the cool thing, is that a lot of people talk about character crises when like they don't know what character to play. But the
Yeah.
problem can be either that there's no character that fits them, or there's too many characters they want to play. And
Yeah.
the latter is where I'm sitting. It sounds like that's where you're sitting too, right?
Yeah, like the more I see, the more it kind of, it's like it's making me not necessarily second guess, but it's like I'm almost at the point where I'm gonna make like a tier list of characters that I want to try out first, and who got to test out their tools and everything, and see how they feel, how I like them, how they feel with me, and
Yeah.
then kind of whittle it down from there.
Okay. I definitely want to talk to you about that one later on the show too, because
Yeah.
today we have kind of an interesting show where originally we were going to do it like kind of a biography episode, and our guest was going to be John Guerrero, aka Velociraptor of Event Hubs and of Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah.
But like today is the day they also dropped the Cammy trailer, or the Cammy, not the trailer, but the Cammy match footage between Manon and her. So that's
Yeah.
a lot of information on both those new popular characters. And he is a journalist in the fighting game community, and so he just has to be on that, making the reaction video, getting it out as soon as possible.
Yeah, gotta put the content out, man.
Yeah, yeah. I was pulling up the trailer just to show it on our show today, and there are already YouTubers out there that have posted reaction videos. Like they're on it. So I thought like being an IT professional was like the only time you had to be on call, but I guess journalists got to be on call too.
Yeah, journalists, content creators, you want to be the first one to put stuff out there, right? So
Yeah.
you probably got those tweets on, the notifications for all tweets, or you have the Street
Yep.
Fighter YouTube channel to all notifications or something like that. Like you got to be on the ball.
Yeah. Even if you're a big publication like IGN, or like maybe even Event Hubs, you have relationships with those publishers too. So like they may even have stories written in advance to publish at a certain time.
Yeah.
Or it could be the grassroots style where it's like I'm hitting refresh over and over again, or like turn on notifications, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like the funny part is that I'm like, well, what do we do to fill this time? And I haven't seen the trailer yet. I think you said you've seen it once already. So I'm just
Yeah.
gonna watch it real quick, and then we'll react to it, and then kind of give some like brief thoughts. The thing's only like 3 minutes long. It's not like it's a full on trailer or anything.
Yeah.
And it'll be on the video feed here. For those listening on audio, you'll hear the sound bites, and I'll try my best to describe what's going on. So we'll go from there. I'm gonna go ahead and hit play, and for the first time, we're gonna have music playing or sound playing during the actual podcast here. So here we go.
Beginning operation. Prepare.
Round 1. Let's see.
Okay. So punish counter on the throw. So there's the throw for Cammy in particular. That's a pretty neat looking animation for her forward throw. Yeah. Normally her forward throws are pretty like lackluster, I think.
Yeah, those kind of animations always kind of throw me off in terms of like wake up timings and stuff like that.
Okay. That's another good note, is that the command grab causes a hard knockdown from Manon, similar to Street Fighter V. See right there, reversal, command grab, hard knockdown, so she can't back tech out of it. Cammy stand short looks a little different. That's kind of interesting. There's a hooligan for Oki. Throw tech. Her normals are pretty good. Like, Cammy's normals look pretty far reaching. The stand short looks pretty homogenized for the rest of Street Fighter 6's stand shorts. Was that SA1 or 2? I think that was SA1. Yeah, okay, that was
stand
SA1.
short looks like Ryu's stand short in Street Fighter 5.
Yeah.
I think that's what Cammy's. Oh yeah.
She looks like Cammy. Like her, more like Cammy than you initially think.
Yeah.
You think that the makeover should be completely different. Her stand forward's the same. That's pretty cool. Manon's clearly got an invincible anti-air. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And then she can combo in her restand apparently.
Yeah, that what do you call it? What's the hooligan move, right?
Yeah,
and then
hooligan.
the like the Seth. It looks like Seth's kick. Like
the axe kick. Yeah.
Yeah, the axe kick. Yeah, the axe kick.
Let's go. We'll go back to it here. I'll show it. I just saw it.
Yeah, that to me
earlier. There, right there. Yeah. That axe kick is pretty cool.
It's a big deal. Yeah, I think that's a big deal because those are the type of things like just like dive kicks, or things that change your trajectory. Yeah, those cause me problems all the time. I mean, I think it's everybody really. Just the timing of your AAs or the timing of what you're thinking.
Yeah,
is altered by something like that.
I think having a parry is going to be really helpful for that. Like dive kicks, I think would be shitty if they didn't have extra follow-ups like that. Like they're fair again because parry's in the game, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Whoa, was that an overhead or is she just not blocking? Let's see. That looked like it hit high. We don't know for sure, but okay.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Because that looks like it's a hop kick, so it can go over a little forward. Man, does Manon have like a Buki syndrome where she doesn't have like her thighs like covered by her clothing? Like there's like random slits in her clothes.
The slits on the sides.
Well, that's a pretty cool looking suit animation. I like that.
Yeah, they've done really well with the critical art super animations.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. So it looks like she can use the hooligan axe kick to kind of do a throw kill. Like if someone's trying to delay tech or something, you can just do that to blow it up. Ah, what the hell? Hang on. I want to rewind that.
So that EX knuckle?
Yeah. Yeah, so she burnt out. Okay, yeah. So low forward, DRC for their frame advantage, stand strong, stand jab into EX spin knuckle, and then link afterwards. But the EX spin knuckle burnt her out.
Yeah.
Whoa, that was tight. Oh, it didn't kill. Oh, they messed up.
Kill?
Okay, that's a good look.
Yeah, I think the things that stood out to me the most with that was just like, it was definitely the axe kick. Like in terms of Street Fighter 6, like I've tried to stay away from a lot of like in-depth content, like personally. I've
so
seen
the
character trailers. Yeah, pretty much. Like, I mean, I don't know. I really want that kind of like initial discovery phase to kind of be what it is, and like that's like the most fun for me. So it's like, I think the axe kick out of the hooligan was the biggest thing, and then I think Manon's like levels were staying constant through the rounds.
Yeah, that
Like,
seems
yeah,
that's a really like unique thing, I think, for six, or for Street Fighter in general, is having a mechanic that carries over from round to round. Usually it's
yeah,
just super meter, I think.
yeah,
um yeah, the hooligan, what I really noticed about it is that Cammy really only used it on wake up, like as an Oki setup, um which is pretty cool. That means she's going to stick to you in a different way than just, button spiral arrow dash dash, which is what she did in 5
yeah,
until you died, essentially. Even in the corner, she'd hit you a spiral arrow, and she'd combo into uppercut dash dash into the same thing. That's what kind
yeah,
of why she got a reputation for being boring, right? But it seems like they're still kind of keeping the spirit of the character, and that she's really simple. But her her offense is a little bit more varied compared to 5, and it has to be, because
yeah,
there's perfect parry in this game, so you gotta mix up your timings and options anyway.
yeah,
Other than that, like, her normals seem pretty par for the course. They look normal. The stand short, again, is really weird looking to me, but that seems to be a common button type in 6, where that stand short's there to punish like -5 moves, or to whiff punish a low forward or something really quickly.
yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, Manon, the thing that stood out for me the most was that anti-air that she has, because you don't usually
Oh,
see
the EX,
grapplers.
yeah,
Yeah, you don't see grapplers with like invincible motion anti-airs usually. The closest I've seen is like Abel's Falling Sky,
yeah.
but that's a hit grab, and so that thing lost to a lot of things a lot of times, right? Um, so I'm curious about what happens when it's like a strike anti-air, invulnerable anti-air.
Yeah, well,
And
I guess he considered Honda in Street Fighter 4 a grappler. He had EX headbutt.
yeah, well, that's not that. Yeah, I guess so. But like, that's not a motion that you could just do on reaction, right? You had to charge
Yeah,
it
yeah,
too.
that's true. Yeah, yeah,
So I'm curious about like what happens when you give somebody a DP, or it could be like Makoto's. Makoto's is
oh,
probably a better way to put it. Actually, Makoto's the answer to that, because yeah, you had the Fukiage, right? But you could empty
yeah.
jump it, and you could do all this weird shit to make it whiff, because it wasn't a traditional DP.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
because they had a weird like a hurt box or a hitbox.
yeah, and like for Honda, like if you jump, you can't jump at a different range and make that headbutt whiff. That thing's making contact, unless you're going full screen, in which case there's no punish, and then Honda's like, "Look, I created a mess." Okay,
Oh,
cool. So before we get into because we're going to talk a little bit about Street Fighter 4 Honda and stuff with this roster recollections thing, but before we get too deeply into that, I wanted to ask some just general comment stuff. Number one, Street Fighter Duel has been out for 3 weeks now. Or has it been 3 weeks? Or it's been out for a while at least, and I think the afterglow from the launch has faded, right?
yeah.
Um, and I wanted to ask you how you were doing with that game, and whether or not you are still playing it.
I am here and there, but I've kind of hit that really hard paywall. I'm at the end of level 16. So or no, I just beat level 16 actually the other
Oh,
like
okay.
yesterday. So I'm on 17, and that was after hitting a hard paywall at like 1640.
Right.
So yeah, for me personally, like I think I put in $10 like at the very beginning, and I haven't put anything else, and I just choose not to. And I've kind of just been like making my way, and then I think the first hard paywall I hit was like level 12, and then I really kind of hit this stride where I was just like, I don't know, I think with all the extra events and everything that was going on, I was able to kind of push through and get through like almost 3 levels just consistently.
Nice.
So I was like really surprised, and I was just like, oh, they're actually like letting me get further and further and further. And I think at times it was part just kind of understanding like the characters and like mechanics, and like how to beat certain team compositions better. Like taking out the anchor is like the big thing in this, and like when you're playing against like Viper or somebody like that.
Dawson.
Yeah, Dawson. Yeah, Dawson's with the big one too. Yeah, taking out him.
Yep.
So like I was finding like the right team compositions to deal with that. Like I started using Cody, just
Oh,
normal Cody, because he has that
a shield,
I don't know.
right?
I don't know, not the shield. It's like I don't know if he has that move in Alpha or any other game, but he has like a grapple. Like he uses the handcuffs and he grabs the person and he pulls them to the front.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay,
I didn't know
that's
that.
cool.
I think I saw a tweet about it. I think from Automatic. Yeah, I think he talked about Cody, and I was
Nice.
just like, I never tried him, and I was like, and he's like, yeah, he's top tier, and I was just like, huh, and I was like, and then I picked him, and I was like, I guess you get his initial special for free, like at no cost. So basically, I was using that against the anchor teams to pull the anchor front, and then there's certain combo routes that would like I was finally realizing that like if I used who was I using Chun Li and Mad Ryu, like if I used
Just like
Chun
everyone
Li's
else, right?
level 2 and then I tried the level 3 with Mad Ryu, that
Yeah,
they would drop out. So I noticed I had to flip them, and then I had to use the Tatsu Super with Mad Ryu to kind of keep them locked in the front. And
yeah.
then you use Chun Li's level 3 to finish them off. And then I was just like, oh, this that's when I kind of hit that epiphany and I started really progressing because I was just like, okay, I can really kill the anchor character first.
Yep.
And then from here, like, I was just walking through like a lot of the levels.
Nice, nice. That seems. I think around you said it was 16 or 17. You said
Yeah, I just got to 17 now. Yeah.
that's around the time I discovered a similar combination. Because right now everyone like that's actually one of my main problems with the game right now is that like, and to be fair, like this is what was going to happen no matter what, is that all the teams are kind of homogenizing.
Yeah.
Because the strategies are there where it's just you go for crowd control and you suck them in and you assassinate them. Like use Beast
Yeah.
Zangief or Cody or whatever to grab their anchor, right?
Yeah.
And you can use that to interrupt their supers as well, and then steal a turn from them essentially, and then you just AOE them to death with Chun. Um,
Yeah.
and then you put Bison in the front just because, like, he'll just do
Yeah.
incidental damage and he'll protect them, and he won't die. So it's like,
Yeah.
and again, like no one's expecting. I wasn't expecting like balance or like too
Oh yeah,
much
for sure.
freedom of expression because it's a pay to win game. It's a gotcha game, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but it is like nowadays I'm just like, okay, I don't really care as much about the characters anymore because I'm focused so much on the mechanics of the game, which is what I do with main fighting games. But
Yeah.
the mechanics in the gotcha game aren't very deep, and so there's really not a lot there besides just hitting the buttons at the I guess hitting the buttons at the right time. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's a fighting game. But yeah, my team's the same thing. It's just it alternates between Chun, Ryu, Chun, Mad Ryu, Bison, Elena, and Geef, a Beast Geef.
Yeah.
And you like
Yeah.
every team I've noticed is exactly the same. They might put the new Gore Magala Ken in there. They might put the you might see like a counter like an Abel in there. Like it's like you
Yeah.
can already see like the dark like the second tier characters that are like there for situational purposes, and then the top tiers are like
Exactly.
your Bisons, Elenas, and stuff.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly where I'm at now. I'm like, yeah, I'm at the
Yeah,
point where I'm just like, I'm playing it definitely not as much, maybe an hour a day, if that.
same here.
Usually around midnight when I'm
Yeah, me too.
working.
When
And then
all
it's
the good
just like,
shit
oh,
happens. Yeah,
yeah, when all the stuff opens, and I was just like, oh, I can do all this stuff again, and kind of just killing time until the next time.
does it feel like chores yet for you?
No, not really. I mean, it's just more frustrating, like hitting that wall, even in like the what they call it, the summit fist. Like I just passed level 200. Like those were
Mhm.
the two big milestones. Was like level 1540, and then getting to level 200. And I was like, I kept on hitting a wall at like 198, and then I finally got over that, and now I'm just like, I can't get past to where I'm at all right now. So it's just kind of like, well, this is where I'm at until however long.
If you ever want to play a gotcha game that like it, because that's the way these games work, right? Is they drip feed you, like it's a management game, and you like everybody likes filling out a spreadsheet or something. Like they like doing the management stuff, but then
Yeah,
they block you out of it and they drip feed it to you, right?
yeah,
Um, Nom's in our chat right here asking if we watched the new footage or not. But yes, we did. We just watched it now.
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt myself, but uh, yeah. So those management games, like the way they do it is they drip feed it to you, right? And so they
Yeah,
limit you, like you're like, oh, I'm about to beat this boss, and then we're just gonna gate you from being able to actually do it, and then you're gonna have to come back later and turn it into a routine. Um,
yeah,
there was a PlayStation Plus game, or Yakuza Like a Dragon was on PlayStation Plus 1 month, and I downloaded it and played it, and it's got a mini game in there that's like this, but you don't have to pay anything. And so
oh,
I got like I was playing the main Yakuza game, and it took me like 60 hours to beat the game. I think I spent about 10 of those hours on that one mini game because it's like there is something about the gacha formula that is really addicting.
Yeah, it is.
And it's really fun and satisfying to like kind of like get all your dudes, merge them together, upgrade them, and then put them in battle, and then upgrade them again, and then just kind of keep that loop going, right? It's why people liked playing Final Fantasy on the NES. But I encourage people that want to play those kinds of games without some of the predatory mobile bullshit game, mobile gacha game bullshit. Try Yakuza Like a Dragon and try that mini game because it has an ending too, which is really nice because you finish the gacha game and then you get rewarded with a big office building or some shit. And it was a nice way to experience that genre of game without having to have my wallet attached to it.
Nice.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, I haven't really played the games like that before, so it's just, I mean, I don't know. I guess there've been a few, and it's just like I just never really thought about them in terms of like being in that genre. But I mean, yeah, definitely played some games like that before.
I played a game called Game Dev. Wait, Game
Game
Dev
Dev
Story.
Story.
Yeah, and it reminds me a lot of that. Those management like Sim
Yeah,
City and
yeah.
they're there, you know, and like they're like I played through Triangle Strategy recently, which is a Final Fantasy Tactics kind of game, and there's
Mhm.
management in between your battles, you know, and people like that stuff. I like that stuff. Pokemon is built around that. Even
Yeah.
it's team management, right?
Team composition, yeah. Counters, hard counters to this and that. Yep.
Is there a Pokemon gotcha? I feel like that's
I
just
don't know.
money out there, or
That's
just sitting out there,
that's
right? People would
that's
eat that.
just yeah. They're just printing money that way.
I guess Pokemon Go, but it's not a gotcha. It's
Yeah.
okay. um, okay, so another like brief topic before we get into our roster recollection section is I wanted to ask you because it was I think last night on Steam I was playing a game that I got on the Steam sale and I saw your handle popped up and it said you were playing Cross Tekken and it got me thinking about like how you picked up Sam's show recently and then on a previous show you mentioned that you know your son likes Dragon Ball and you've kind of learned a little bit of Dragon Ball with him and so I was kind of curious about like from your perspective, you know, like what does it take to learn a new game or how do you approach a new game? And like because you don't always approach it from a competitive lens per se. It's more like there can be a casual lens, there can be a I'm playing with my son lens, there could also be the
Yeah.
competitive lens. Um,
Yeah. I was gonna say
but
it's funny you mentioned Cross Tekken because like it's not like if you see anything pop up on Steam lately, it's my son playing. It's not me. Like I'm
oh, so
not
your
playing
son
any of
was
that
playing
stuff.
Cross Tekken.
So
Okay.
he's the one. Like if you see him exploring like any kind of games on there, that's him, and that's really kind of interesting because like he had recently talked about how um what was it that came out the Jack 8 trailer for Tekken, right?
Ah, yeah.
And he was telling me about it. He's like, oh yeah, in Cross Tekken, I was playing around with Rufus and Jack, and I was just like, I was like, okay, like what prompted that? And he's just like, and he
He
didn't
likes the
even say
big
anything.
dudes.
So yeah, so now I know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he does in Street Fighter 6. He does plan to play Geef. I think that's his first choice.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But it'll give me somebody to learn with. But I mean, I don't know. Just in terms of, I guess in general, like with new games, for me personally, like I don't really look at things from a competitive aspect first. Like I know some people like we've talked to, they're like, well, I look for the tool set and I look, do they have an invincible anti-air? Do they have a invincible dragon punch? What
Sure.
is their low forward like? Those kind of things. Like I don't look at that stuff at all. For me, like I guess maybe I'm a little shallow, but like I'm always looking at their look first. Like if I don't like the way a character looks, like you could pretty much like toss them out the window probably right off the bat. And I'm just like, I don't care what their move set looks like or how effective it is. If they're top tier, like if I don't like the way that they look, like they're out of the question for me already. So
Okay.
um I know this is a interesting topic too because like I was at Anime Impulse in San Diego last week or yeah last weekend, and when we were there in one of the halls there was a game dev. I forgot what the name. I was think it was Rocket Games Mobile or something like that. Um, and they had a PS4 setups for Phantom Breaker Omnia, and
What?
we had played the like I don't know if that was the original game, but there was a Phantom Breaker game on the 360 that was like it's like a chibi anime kind of 4-player co-op beat 'em up, right? And like I had played that with the kids
Okay.
before, so like that's why the name was it stuck out to me. I was like Phantom Breaker Omnia. I was like, what's this? And I was like, oh, it's a fighting game based on their characters. And I was just like, oh,
Oh,
cool. So like we were playing that, we spent I don't know, a good couple hours here and there on both days, just kind of going back and playing the game. And it's real simple. It's pretty much like light, medium, heavy, and then the specials were there's a special button, and then I think you can do basically forward in special, back in special, down in special. Was the typical like that's the base moves. There wasn't really any like motions or charge or anything like that.
sure.
And then I think there's some other mechanics, but we kind of played that, and I didn't, I had never heard of it personally, and we were just playing that here and there. And again, like through looking through the roster, like it's been a bunch of anime looking characters. You had like typical schoolgirl and maid. There was a maid character and like like a emo guy, and I was just like, uh, then I think there was somebody that was like, I'm trying to think who they reminded me of, but they kind of had like this kind of like Navy military look.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and just
Checks
like
all the boxes for different things people are fans of in Japan.
yeah, yeah. So like I mean, yeah, there was a certainly some characters that were kind of like almost like mirrors of each other, very similar. Kind of like the Ryuken, like one, that kind of archetype. But I don't know. It's just for me, like it's always the look first, and then it's just like as we were playing, it was kind of like we're both kind of figuring out the game on the fly
Sure.
and testing out like what the special moves were, and like oh what kind of projectile is this, or what does this DP do, or what does this move do? So for me, it's always like a kind of a just an exploratory kind of thing. Like I'm looking at their move sets and just how they look. Like
Sure.
I don't know, I'm a big on like the visual and the aesthetics and that kind of stuff.
It's
Like
like
for me,
that.
like
It's that
oh, go
discovery
ahead.
phase you were talking about earlier, right? Where like with six, you were trying to avoid some pre-release footage so that way you can go and learn all those moves yourself or see them in action yourself for the first time versus reading
Yeah,
it on a blog or having some YouTuber show it to you and then break it down frame by frame, right?
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
okay, I get it. So yeah, like you're basically experiencing that discovery period for Phantom Breaker Omnia in real time, right
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah, and like I said, like that I hadn't heard about the game at all, and then I find out that it's been out since like last March. So I was like, oh, this game's been out a whole year, and like I had no idea. Like
Yeah.
maybe I saw it in the tweet or something in passing and just never thought of anything of it. But I actually bought it on Steam because it was like on sale for $10. So it's just another game for me and my son to play just casually. Especially like I said, the inputs are pretty simple, just something else to play.
Do you like take note of like what mechanics are universal versus what are character specific when you're trying that character out for the first time? Like
Uh,
say for four, like you busted out a focus attack and whatnot. Like do you, like are you like what are you looking at from like a universal lens, independent of a character, when you're looking at a new game?
well, I guess like yeah, in terms of like the universal mechanics, like with the focus attack, the thing I was looking at was um, how it would benefit my character, or how it benefits the game as a whole. So, the big thing in four was like the FADC combos, right? Dragon Punch FADC Ultra,
Yeah,
and like right off the bat, like from playing other people, I was like, oh, this has utility beyond just like holding down and being an unblockable attack, which is what people initially saw.
sure,
But I mean, with my character with Honda, who I played in four, I didn't have a ton of utility for that personally, like in terms of cancels. Like really, the only time I'd really see anybody use it as Honda was like hands FADC into Ochio throw.
Ocho, yeah.
And that was pretty much the one mix up he had with FADC. Otherwise, you save the meter for anti-airs or combo extensions, that kind of thing.
Okay, so basically Honda lets you ignore universal mechanics is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean that like I looked at the comparison of like not just the the FADC stuff, but like in terms of like the actual range of the focus attack, right? Because like
Got it.
Honda's was absolutely terrible. Like it was like him and like he pushed like 3 inches in front of him. Then you had like Fei Long that was like reaching like a quarter screen when he let go.
Yeah. Yeah, that he'd be
So
dashing it on you, be plus, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's just like, you had two, you look at those kind of things and you're just like, well, obviously my character wasn't really designed to use this much, right? Like it wasn't really designed for him.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So like when I guess so you jump in and you just pick a character and you feel it out, right? So
Yeah.
what I guess do you have a way of like describing like what feels good when you're playing a character? Like how do you know when you've landed on the character that you want?
Well, like I said, the first thing's always looks. So it's just like the character look itself.
Yeah.
That's got to be the first thing for me. Like I got to be like, I like the way that this character looks. Whether they're, I don't know, I don't. It's not really like a specific thing I'm looking for. It's just like, uh, because I mean, if you look at like the characters that I've played, like in games, right? It was Honda. Then I went to Sim, and then in Phantom Breaker, or in Marvel, it was Hulk. What was I play? Oh, initially, like my first team in Marvel was like Hulk, Ryu, and Wolverine. Like the composition just didn't really work. But
Yeah.
those were just like the first three that I like gravitated to, and I was just like, this team doesn't really work. But then I eventually landed on like Hulk, Storm, Sentinel, and it was just from watching other people play and liking the way that those characters looked and like their supers and stuff like that, their utility in that sense. But
Yeah,
then like
can I unpack what it means like to say when you like the characters look as in like their graphic design, as in their move set, is it them in motion? Like
I, I would
what
say it's a
looks
little
cool
bit
to
of
you?
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like what gravitated me to Honda when I was younger was like, one, it was just the idea of him like slapping the hell out of somebody with the 100
Okay.
hand slap, and then just how silly it was to have this large human being torpedo himself across the screen. And I was just like, this is so stupid. Like he's just flying across the screen, and he just knocks somebody down. So to me, as a kid, that's what got me interested in Honda.
Okay. Uh
In the chat, the skills that kill says Benny loves some Mike Ross. Hey, that was just a coincidence. Like,
yeah.
for context, Mike Ross in Marvel 3 played Hulk, Storm, Sentinel, and it was, we both being Honda players, and then like me playing that Marvel team, and then seeing that he played that Marvel team, I was like, man, what are the chances?
Those are the kinds of trends that make me think that like there's something deeper than just like like there's a method to the madness as far as like stylistic choices and character look and feel. Like you clearly have something in common with Mike Ross as far as like a gameplay archetype, even because it's
Yeah,
one thing to say this character looks cool, it's another thing to say I want to stick with this character afterwards. And
yeah,
we've
yeah.
talked at length on previous episodes about like character selection and whatnot. So I guess another general question I had for you was like, let's contrast that with your son, where like when G picks up a new game, like from your outside perspective, what do you think he's trying out first and foremost?
Well, I think one thing that his characters have to have, or yeah, from what I've kind of pieced together so far, is the command gram. Like,
Okay.
I think he just likes that aspect of the game. I don't know if it's necessarily the like conditioning aspect, if he's really working on that, or he just likes the fact that because just to command grab people and like the damage that those moves typically do is
Mm-hmm.
pretty big damage. Because
Sure.
like I said, in 6 he wants to play Geef. In Cross Tekken, he was playing Rufus and Jack Cross, Jack X. Um, when I was kind of learning Alpha 2 in the last couple of years, he decided to play Geef in that. So I was just
Okay.
like, okay, like, and then who's he playing in who's the command grab character in Dragon Ball? Android 16.
Yep.
Yeah,
16
so he was playing
Broly
that.
as well.
Yeah, he's been like one of those characters is like in his team compositions because he just was like, hey, check out this TOD, and like he was doing like the Android 16 stuff, and I was just like, okay.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So he's a big body player. Then it
Yeah,
sounds
he's
like
he's the big
he's a
body.
big
Like,
body
yeah,
guy.
I think
Okay.
I think that might bode well for like my kind of like individual training because like I'm trying to get him to the point to where like he's actually like understanding like footsies and conditioning people and stuff like that because like I'll play him, and then all of a sudden he's just like going for command grabs, and I was just like, I know you were gonna do that, like, and he's it's kind of like building him up at the same time.
Yeah, teaching him how to make reads, right? You're teaching him how to
Yeah.
read. That's what you're doing. I was thinking a lot about there was a Reddit thread today. That's what I saw, and it was about someone talking about Project L and their block button. Like I guess Tom Cannon, or I think it was Tom Cannon. He said officially that Project L will not have a block button. And that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but more so like the comments that I read were like stuff like, I think block buttons are bad. I like cross ups better. I think and then it got into like people trying to like say, well, what if we have like there was one comment about like a degrading block button, about like you can use it, but it'll autocorrect for you, but it'll only autocorrect a certain number of times. Just like terrible game design, in my opinion. Like I would downvote that if I was that kind of person. But it got me thinking a lot about how specifically like what blocking is, because then people started talking about how blocking is elegantly designed by just holding back and stuff like that. In reality, I think it's the opposite. I think blocking is really poorly designed in fighting games, and a block button is actually kind of important nowadays.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because one of the things that when I was learning how to play Street Fighter 4, which I guess we're probably going to get into in that roster recollections today, but there was always this problem I had where, I'd like, when I'm learning a fighting game, I'm like, I want to hit them, but if I hit them, they can block it. And so what do I do to beat them blocking it? And so I think the average person would then go to throw. But in my case, I was like, no, I don't actually I want to make it so that way they can't block it. So I'm going to go for a cross up instead. And then I started building my style around ambiguous stuff that was hard to block. And I just never considered throw as part of the rock, paper, scissors weapon triangle thing. So it got me thinking a lot about like how in 6 in particular, like it's got a block button and the parry button. So people that like cross ups are going to have a hard time. And it got me thinking a lot about like what game in general rewards cross ups in 2023, because I think most games nowadays have some form of cross up protection and left right stuff. So the block button just seems like something that we would naturally go towards. Anyway, all that stuff to say is it got me thinking a lot about like, where did I go wrong when I was learning that new game, when I was learning Street Fighter 4? Because I shouldn't have gone to cross up, because then that led me down this fucking bullshit mix up path. And in reality, I probably should have learned how to throw.
Yeah.
And so that's a kind of what brought it to my mind. I'm like, okay, so is Benny's son thinking about throws? And hell yeah, he's at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where he's like, I only want to do throws. I want to do command grabs, man.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting way that I guess your pathway in terms of like not wanting to go to throws. I mean, I don't know if that's just the older school mentality, because like I grew up as a kid in the Street Fighter 2 era, and it's just like that was always something that you did, right? Like somebody wants to keep blocking. Oh, okay, let me walk up and just throw you. And I don't know, it's just like that's a really polarizing subject. Like it comes up, that comes up all the time, like when people bring up
Rose being
Mortal
cheap,
Kombat, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Rose being cheap.
Oh. You just mean the block button in general, like being
the
kind
block
of a
button in
touchy
general,
thing?
Yeah. I think just like I don't know, the idea for me, like with cross ups and like holding back to block. I think for me, I feel it's natural. Like it's it's second nature to me. Like when a game has a block button, like I just like I don't know. It's hard for me to grasp, and hard to me to get used to doing stuff. Holding down the block button and then kind of doing things from there. Like I played Mortal Kombat 9 when that came out. That was probably the one Mortal Kombat that I got. I was playing semi competitively, but it's just like other than that, it's like I look at the idea of like cross ups and stuff as part of like I don't know. I guess it's just kind of the standard mental stack you got to deal with in a fighting game, right? It's just like, oh, this guy's gonna attack. Okay, what's next? Is he gonna go for a throw, or is he gonna try to jump over me? And if he jumps over me, then it's like I got to be prepared to block the other way. And that's just kind of like a standard thing that I'm just kind of used to doing in like any fighting game nowadays.
I I don't know. Maybe it's because I grew up as a fighting game player. At least I grew up playing the left right game, and I got to hear just how much people don't like cross ups. Because
Well, see, like
in a
I
lot of
mean,
ways, it's a guess, right? For a lot, like
yeah,
if it's extra ambiguous, it's a guess, and I get
yeah,
that.
it
That's
is.
annoying.
Yeah, no, it is annoying. I mean, it's almost funny that I even say that, considering like you were one of my biggest demons in Street Fighter 4 playing Ibuki. Like I had the hardest time dealing with Ibuki in Street Fighter 4 of all characters, because she had a lot of answers for basically like everything that Honda did, like the kunai like setups and stuff like that you would do. Like they would blow up my EX headbutt, or they'd send me, I'd go flying across the screen and like I got nothing out of it, right? I just escaped,
Mhm.
and then those kind of situations.
Yeah,
So I
I
mean,
remember
yeah, I
that
don't know.
matchup pretty well. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I think Ibuki lost on the ground, but then the moment she knocked Honda down, it depended
Yeah,
on it
and
was about whether or not the
it
Honda
was time
wanted
to
to block.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
If
I
I could make one small correction in my statement earlier, Skills That Kills is in the chat, and he mentioned that Strive rewards cross ups pretty well, and not Dragon Ball, Project L, which is a derivative of Battle of the Grid in a lot of ways. Also, take a lot
Oh, that's the
of
Power Rangers game, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and this
Yeah,
is
for
it's a
those of you
lot of
that
the
don't
same
know,
people. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, for those of you that know, Skills That Kills is a Evo champion for that game.
Yep. Yep, yeah. So we gotta trust his opinion. That we should have him on the show. It's been a while. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
sorry,
a good
AJ, we
idea.
haven't talked to you lately about that. I think I brought that up to you
A
at
two
Street
X
Fighter
world
Day.
champ. Let me
Yeah,
stand corrected.
the
2X world
only
champ.
double world champ for Evo at Arizona, I think.
Yeah.
I never asked. I thought I asked at Street Fighter Day. Okay, we'll ask you. We'll bring you on at some point. That's got to be. Yeah, we got to do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so Project L and Battle for the Grid both are have similar development teams. There's a lot of the same people who worked on both those games, and so I guess those games were cross ups. My original point was that I just remember like there's a litany of not litany is the wrong way to put it. There's a long list of people that I've encountered in our scene that they have the like, oh my god, that kind of tone whenever you get to deal with cross ups, that kind of like whiny tone. And I'm not gonna out
Yeah.
anybody in particular, but
Well,
man, I caught
I gotta
so
ask
much
you.
shit.
I gotta ask you though. Like, are they newer players, or are they like? Is it a mix of everyone?
X mix of everyone, top players, lower level players. Lower level players oftentimes don't even know why they got hit, so they don't care. The top
Yeah.
level players cry the most about cross ups, in my
Well,
opinion.
I guess it's a good thing that in a lot of recent games now that they are putting in that little graphic that says cross up, so
Mhm.
and you could be like, oh, it was a cross up. Oh, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So
It's
it's just
the
like,
bullshit flag. But yeah, like I was thinking Dragon Ball Fighters has cross up protection. I thought Strive's
Mhm.
corner had cross up protection too. But and then Street Fighter 6, obviously the corner, like that got a corner in Street Fighter 6, you actually get like an autocorrect thing where you can choose to block a cross up and take yourself out of the corner. Um
Hmm.
like it's basically you can hold left or right. It's the opposite of a cross up. You hold left or right and it'll block for you no matter what. um and there was another game recently that I forgot that had like extreme cross up protection. I can't remember what it was. I think it was probably one of the Arxis games like Grand Blue or DNF. I can't remember which
Mm,
one though. Um
yeah.
so and yeah, I took it as though that the genre in general is kind of moving away from left right and more towards high low, or more specifically strike throw block. And
Hmm.
I just I look at a lot of how the newer generation of players that have learned games with Street Fighter 5 or the ones that are getting ready for Street Fighter 6, right? And they tend to seem like, at least for the 5 guys, like they picked up fighting games way faster than when I picked up 4 in 2008. It took me, I was talking to a guy at Casuals last Friday, and I mentioned like whiff punishing, and I told him it took me 6 years to figure out how to do whiff punishing, because I got by for so long just being like, I'm just gonna knock them down and go left, right, right. So, and then in the meantime, like there's people that have been playing for like less than 6 months that can whiff punish me, and it's like, okay, well, so there's clearly like a way for people to learn this shit faster nowadays. And that's what got me thinking about how do people learn new games and all this other stuff, you know? Did you have general ideas for spacing? Asks Skills That Kills in the chat. And the answer to that one is yes, but I always made sure that I canceled it into a safe move, like a spin kick or something. So I turned it into, I played Ibuki a lot like Bison, I think. And you just autopilot. It's a lot, well, very similar to Marvel, where it's like you when you're doing a block string, you usually want to cancel into something, usually, unless they're push blocking weirdly. Yeah. You don't ever want to just let your normals rock. So in that sense, like by no way was I really punishing. Like I wasn't baiting people. I was just too busy trying to force a frame trap over and over again. Or going for that big jump. The big super jump cross up short that would catch people.
Oh man, that's
yeah. Well, let's right I was deliberately trying to not lean too hard into mechanics when asking you about these games, because I think that oftentimes that we alienate our viewers going too deep into mechanics, but here we are. So why don't we elevate it a little bit further and talk more about like memories and stories. So this next segment of our show, something new we wanted to try. Benny had this idea when we had Angelic on, where we were going to we were trying to play a game with every guest afterwards, and gradually those games kind of dropped off because I got lazy and didn't want to think up of games anymore. But it was, we pull up a character select screen, and then we just had Angelic like pick a character like each character would like pick a name that reminded him of it.
First one that came to mind, yeah.
Right. And we did it at the end of the show, so there wasn't a lot of time for him to expand, and that was kind of the draw. But you know, in general, we have a lot of people that want to come back to the show, and we struggle a lot of times thinking about like what is the best way to frame like their stories. And a character select screen actually turned out pretty well as far as what happened with Angelic. And so I thought we would try to pilot that today. Originally, we were going to have John Velociraptor Guerrero on the show to do a biography episode. And this is kind of a decent substitute. He might actually like doing this when he comes on eventually anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Street Fighter 4 character select screen right now. And then we're going to just cover, not all of them because that's way too many, but we are going to go through like 4 or 5 of them, maybe even 7. I can't remember what number we decided on. And just basically it's less so about like, here's a breakdown of how this character works and all the mechanics and their frame data and shit like that. And more like Benny and I played Street Fighter 4 from 2008 to 2000 and I don't know when Ultra came out.
Till whenever it stopped.
To 2015, I think. I played it off and on. I think you played it off and on as well. So we have a lot of like memories of this game. So it's less so of like, here's the best player, and more like, here's a character and here's a memory that we have of it. So we'll go ahead and start first with the first character on the character select screen for Street Fighter 4 is DeCapri. So Benny, do you have any stories about DeCapri?
For DeCapri in general, like I really think of two players, one from Alaska, one from here. And the one from Alaska is my friend Ori. He goes by the tag Orsonite. And he's the type of player, like, he always plays the most obscure characters. Like, every game. Like, in Marvel, he played, what was his team? Beautiful Joe. And I don't know, it was like, I forgot the other two. Oh, Rocket Raccoon, and there was somebody else. Like, you know, he'd play the most obscure characters in, like, every game that we played. In 4, he played almost like the whole cast. Like when somebody would come out, he would play somebody, but I think his main was really like Adon. But then when DeCapri came out, like he would come to tournaments and he'd always have that like new character that he was like messing with and just like play with them. So like it was DeCapri for him, and then the other person from Arizona would be Rock. And you know, we talked to Rock early on in the show. Was it episode, I don't know, 4, 3?
We've done a lot of these shows, man. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like we talked to him early on, and just like, yeah, he was one of the people that, you know, is always willing to try somebody new. And the Capri at the time when she released was a mixture, basically, mixture of Cammy with like the dive kick, and she had a DP, and she had like just that's who I think of the most.
Hmm. Okay.
What
Weirdly
about you?
enough, for DiCapri, I think of John Velociraptor Guerrero.
Oh, really?
And there's a whole storyline here because he doesn't actually play that character. I don't think I've ever seen him play the character, but um, DiCapri was the final character in Ultra Street Fighter 4, right? So when Ultra
Yeah.
Street Fighter 4 was announced, they said we're going to be porting over the Cross Tekken exclusive characters, which were Hugo, Poison, Rolento, and I think there was one other one, or was it just Hugo, Poison, and Rolento? And Elena, of course,
Elena,
Elena
yeah,
too.
Elena.
And but then there would also be a fifth mystery character, and so everybody was speculating on who that could be. The Street Fighter universe was really is really broad, and there were a lot of characters that people were fishing for. And so the worst thing you can do is get a bunch of video game nerds excited about any possible random ass character, because it's always going to be a disappointment. And that's what happened in final round of 2014, I believe, either 2014 or 2015. That final round, it was like the second to last final round in Atlanta, Georgia, and they announced DiCapri there. And I remember being in the crowd, and everybody like getting hype when the announcement was about to happen. And then as the trailer went further on and we realized that it was a doll, everybody was like, okay. Everyone was really disappointed. K-Brad was really excited, but everybody else was super disappointed. And in general, my understanding of the impression that character left, it was everybody, the entire world was disappointed that this was the final character. It was just a reskinned Cammy. Obviously, like moveset wise, she was very different, but to the layman, like, this is it. We waited this long for that. The reason why it reminds me of Jon is Jon did really well that weekend at final round. I think he placed top 8. And he was at the height of his game with Goken, or like I think it was right when he was starting to cool off, because Ultra was winding down and Goken wasn't really a meta character. So he did place top 8 at final round, which is a big deal. And then in particular, he and Nick do these things where they emulate movies a lot. And so he did he pulled the scene from Troy, where Brad Pitt plays Achilles, and he's just standing outside the gates of Troy yelling Hector. But he kept yelling Sanford because he wanted to money match Sanford. And so he just got up on the stage and just started yelling and pacing back and forth, looking at the ground like Brad Pitt in Troy, yelling Sanford. And everyone was like, what the hell is he doing? And like, he went on for a good long time too. So I was like, that guy's got to be hoarse. I'll ask him about it next time he's on the show. But that's why DiCaprio reminds me of Jon, is because she was unveiled very lacklusterly at a tournament that he did well at and emulated a movie at.
That's awesome.
Yep. Okay. Next character, Ryu. Do you have any Ryu stories, Benny?
Ryu stories?
Or
yeah,
people?
These go back to. Well, I mean, when I think of Ryu, just initially, I always think of Daigo. I mean, I think that's natural for a lot of people, especially with Street Fighter 4.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like more personal things, there were back in Alaska, there were 2 people that played Ryu. There was one of my friends. He's basically like the main Tekken guy, but he was playing 4 pretty extensively, like when it launched. He goes by Highlander. And he was actually the first person that I ever had a money match with. It was really only for $1. Like we were playing in his basement, and he was like, I don't even know how it started. I think one of us was just like, I want to play somebody for some money. And I was just like, all I got is $1 on me or something. And it was just like, all right, I'll play you. And like I ended up losing, but like that's just one of like my first memories from like hanging out at somebody's house playing Street Fighter 4. And then the other one was he's basically one of like the pillars of like the AKG scene in Alaska is my friend Banky. I think you met him probably at one of the Evos.
Oh, okay.
But he plays he plays like the whole cast. Like that's his thing. Like he's just always like any fighting game he picks up, he's pretty good at it. And it's just like he played Ryu, and he was always like we pretty much matched up evenly in like everything that we played. Every time we played each other, like one day it would be my turn, the next time he would best me, and like I really learned about like option selects and stuff like that from playing his Ryu because um granted like I'd played fighting games as a kid and then I didn't get competitive until '09 and finding the AKG scene and playing with them, and I was learning option selects because it was Ryu Honda, and Ryu had certain throw option selects and stuff like that where it was like I think the option select was like you get DP if it's one thing, then the other thing I think it you throw or something like that. And I learned real quick like after one match or so, and I was just like, why is this always working? And then I think he explained it to me. He goes, "Oh, this is an option select. So if you do this, this is what comes out of this. And if you do this, then this happens." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm like I didn't even know that that was a thing." Like, so I learned real quick, like how to what that was, and then to always kind of be on the lookout for those kind of things. Like when I played Ryu in general, like
Sure.
that was kind of like my knowledge check for people. Was like, does this guy know this? Okay, he doesn't. Okay, well I'm gonna blow him up if he just tries to approach.
I'm already visualizing it. You're talking about the jab jab sweep option select, right? It'll catch backdash
Uh,
and stuff too.
Yeah, maybe that's I think he did that on me a couple of times too. Like, yeah, he had those down for sure, and like it would
Yeah.
blow up Honda stuff easily. Yeah, because it was like an EX head button. It's like, oh, Dragon Punch came out, and I was like, how does he know every fucking time? I
Oh
was just like,
yeah,
what?
yeah. Okay. Yeah. You
Yeah,
you jump in and then you buffer a DP while you're jumping in and then you during the block stun of it. I like it. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that to me was an eye opener for me as a new competitive gamer, was just to find out that there was stuff like that in the game. I didn't think it was broken. It was more just like something that he had access to and that he had perfected, and I was just like, oh, this is something else that I have to deal with in this matchup.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um Ryu for me, actually, I can't really think of anybody locally that played Ryu at a high level. It's really shitty if there is someone out there and I don't remember them. There were people out there that played Ryu. It's just nobody really like. I think what happened is like he was really good in Vanilla 4, but why play him when you could play Sagat at that time for all of us shortcutting at the time, and then he only progressively got worse, and so there just wasn't a lot of Ryu presence.
Yeah.
The I guess the hallmark like Ryu memories for 4 in particular, I think would be the GameStop tournament where Daigo was whiffing those DPs against the Dulcim player. It wasn't Mochi, it was or was it might have been Mochi.
I think it was Mochi. Yeah,
Yeah,
YHC
okay.
Mochi.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was just but and at the time we were like, okay, what is he doing? And then he hits a limb with Ryu's light DP, cancels it into super and hits half screen with
Yeah.
the super. That was a big deal. And at the time, he was just literally he whiffed like 5 DPs and then Mochi bit and got hit the 5th one. So like we all like looking back on it, you're like, well, what else was you trying to do? It was just like whatever. But
Yeah.
at the time, it was hella hype because I had never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
and the other hallmark Ryu memory for me would be, I think it was SoCal Regionals. It was a Valle versus Daigo match in Street Fighter
Yep.
4.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah, the
That's
mirror,
that
right?
was probably one of my favorite matches. Yeah.
Legendary, yeah. And Shoto mirrors just are always way more way more fun to watch. There's so many
Yeah.
different dimensions to them. I can look back on and watch that match now and notice things that I didn't see when I was in 2010. Um,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Ken, any Ken
Ken
memories? Getting the easy ones out of the
for
way.
Street Fighter 4.
Yeah,
Who played Ken here? Chiron played Ken.
Chiron played Ken. Yeah,
Yeah. For a second I was thinking it was Mocha Latte, but no, that was Street Fighter 5. But no,
correct.
in
Yeah.
terms of Street Fighter 4, yeah, I'd have to say Chiron. That was somebody almost like my friend Banky that whenever I played him in tournament, it was kind of back and forth, right? So it's just like I remember the one thing we did have was bar fights that Abe put on for at the original what's up end game, the original end game that was on like Mill Avenue. Like I brought out my family, and I actually had like a friend come out too because I was like, hey, they're doing this exhibition thing at this game bar, at this barcade or whatever you want to call it, and I'm gonna be part of it. I gotta play this guy, and yeah, I remember like we weren't we were friends, but like we weren't like I guess as close as we are now in terms
Hmm.
of stuff. And yeah, I did win that bar fights match, and I remember that one because that was the one where Jeff was like coaching him on the side too. So yeah, that's probably been my favorite memory of that.
Okay. Who ended up winning that match?
That was me. I ended
see.
up winning that. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So I was pretty happy because like yeah, I had a friend come out that was living in Avondale. I was like, hey, you should come hang out, and he actually showed up, and I was just like, well, now I got to win because I can't be losing in front of my friend.
Yeah, right. That was yeah, that was one of the few bar fights that I haven't been to. I was out sick for that one in particular. I think I was actually scheduled to play an Exerd match against Steve Waldstein in that bar fights, but I was in the hospital at that time. So okay. For Ken, Rick played Ken as well. Rick had a decent Ken. Like whenever you think of Ken
before my time.
well, no, he played Ken later on in like Ultra. He just randomly had a Ken. Yeah. I like my main memory of Ken is just him warping because it would just be that fucking car throw over and over again. So he like it'd always be the same kind of style too. Like they would walk in, walk out, and they'd use the walk in for the next part of it as the forward medium kick part. It'd be walk out, walk in, warp throw.
Yeah.
And it was the stupidest looking shit ever. And I was so annoying to deal with. That step kick. Oh man. Okay. But yeah, I can't think of a specific person besides Chiron and Rick. Those would be my main two picks for people that played Ken. Okay, cool. Honda. That's an easy one, right?
Yeah. I mean, for that, like, man, I mean, without my own like personal stories, I would just say probably the biggest thing for me was like learning about the other players that played Honda when I first started out, was learning about Mike Ross, learning about Mr. SNK, in the AZ scene when I was in Alaska, and kind of just watching their matches whenever things came around, and like basically taking things that they had done and like implementing them into my game. Because like I think we talked about it on a previous show, the Arcade Infinity SBO qualifiers with Mike Ross. That was the big. Yeah, we talked about that with Tim, the big I believe Mike Ross moment. And that when he had the Sagat in the corner and he did the jab headbutt and baited him into the ultra, like yeah, like I put that. Once I saw that was a thing, I was just like, yeah, that was added into my repertoire, and I actually used that in my first money match at Evo against somebody.
Nice.
And pulled that in front of my friends, and I was just like, that was one of like the most hype things. Like I really wish I had like a recording of that, but like just to do that in front of people, in front of somebody that challenged me, and I was like, oh, I'm pulling out all the bullshit now. And like, yeah, to do that against his like Cody and exact situation, put him in the corner, jab headbutt, and then he's like, I see the rock get thrown, and I'm just like, nope, ultra coming right through. Like that was one of my favorite things ever.
Nice. Honda, I joke a lot on the show, but I really mean it. Because I really don't think I don't like Honda as a character. There's a lot like mechanics wise where I'm like, this character doesn't reward that I think the things that I think should be rewarded a lot of times. But weirdly enough, a lot of Honda players end up being my friends. So it's not like I try not to hold it personally against them, and I make jokes and I rib Benny about it. My big memory of Honda is actually like playing with Mr. SNK. Specifically, he helped me get ready for a match at Evo where I had to play another Honda player named I think his name is Jon Nitty. He's an East Coast Honda player, and so Nico actually knew him, but
he's a part of our little he's part of our Facebook group, the Bathhouse. I remember him.
Okay. And so Nico basically just like volunteered to let me beat up on him for a little bit because at the time he wasn't playing regularly, and I had picked the game back up. So I remember grinding in a hotel room with him, being like, let's run through the matchup, and he just let me vortex him over and over again while he tried to figure out ways out. And then I didn't have a problem with Jon Nitty in that match, if I recall correctly. I think it was a clean 2-0. So I'm grateful that Nico helped me out with that a lot. I do think that for Honda in particular, there is So you mentioned the bathhouse, right? Are there any Honda players in the bathhouse that played any other Honda besides Street Fighter 4 Honda?
We had somebody play like Street Fighter Five. A lot of us, I think, didn't end up playing Street Fighter Five. Well, at least not Honda. I think mainly because of the late release. But there was one guy that was playing him in Five.
Got it.
But other than that, like yeah, there wasn't. I don't recall that there was a ton of stuff other than like probably like the initial hype, like when the trailer came out, and then the little discovery stuff, like when he first came out, trying to figure stuff out, and then yeah, there wasn't a ton of us like playing him in Five.
Yeah, I didn't see any like noteworthy Street Fighter 4 Hondas like playing 5 at all, let alone another character
Yeah,
in 5. Especially after the late release. Like by the
yeah.
time Honda came out in 5, there was like the Street Fighter 4 Honda players had already figured out they didn't like 5 as a game. It wasn't just right.
Yeah, I think the only person I saw really discussing or talking about him was like Ultra David on Twitter. Like he'd talk about some stuff that
Yeah,
he was
that's
working
true.
on with
Ultra
him,
David's got a good
and
Honda.
then
Yeah.
yeah, and then just I think the only other thing that I really saw from him in Five was like just kind of like trolly people just trolling around with stuff.
So this is my challenge to all the Street Fighter 4 Honda players that thought Street Fighter 5 was bad. Show me you can play Honda in another game, and then we can talk.
Hey, I play him in two.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's uphill battle as hell in some of those matchups, but I play him in hyper fighting, and in hyper fighting,
Yeah.
it's hell, dude.
My opinion on Street Fighter 2 has dropped so much in recent weeks. I think Street Fighter 2 is a bad game. Those are the hot takes. Okay. But like I said, a lot of my Honda, a lot of the people that I played against Honda with, like, ended up being good friends, training partners, podcast guests. So I imagine we'll have Nico on in the future and probably help finish more of this list.
Speaking of John Nitty, I don't know if you ever saw like a profile picture like of somebody from like I think he went to NLBC because he was East Coast, like wearing a hot dog costume. That's him.
Yeah. I remember him being the hot
Yeah.
dog guy for some reason. Whether I was doing research on him or he wore a hot dog costume at Evo, I don't remember which.
Yeah,
but
he wore a hot dog costume at some tournament. I remember seeing
Yeah.
it, and people were just like, "Who's that in a hot dog costume?" And I was like, "Oh, that's John." Oh man.
Oh man. That was around the time. Yeah, it was like because that was around Ultra, and then after I stopped playing fighting games a little bit after Ultra, and then I started like doing like normal people shit, like going out and partying and stuff. And I remember every Halloween there'd always be a couple guys wearing hot dog costumes, and it made me think of John Itty. So basically, John Itty prepped me for the realities of clubbing on Halloween. Okay, cool. Let's move forward. It's really kind of funny how our two characters ended up being next to each other on the character select screen. We didn't plan that out. So Ibuki is the next character. What's your memory of Ibuki?
I have terrible memories of Ibuki because, like, I don't think
I told you people don't like getting fucking crossed up. I've told you.
I don't think in the history of the time that we played for, I don't think I beat you in a set ever. Like,
Really?
I'd have to really think about that because there's none that I remember at all. I remember. Because there was times that I would tell my friends I was playing on stream, right, in Alaska, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm gonna be playing up on stream," and it would be against you. And like I was like looking back on, like I don't know if I saw videos or comments or something, and like they would just be like, "Man, whatever this trash ass Ibuki just keeps doing this and this over and over," and I was like, "Because I can't deal with it." I was just like, I'm sitting here like frustrated because I don't know how to deal with it.
Yep.
So like, that's pretty much my story with Ibuki is just the fact that you talked about Nico basically trying to figure out ways to get out of it. And that was like, I'm not really the type of person to kind of like lab stuff like that. And like, I never really did, but I would research it and be like, how do I deal with this? And they're like, you just got to block correctly. And I was just like, okay, so, and then what? And it's like, well, if you block it this way, then this could happen and this will happen. I'm just like, oh my God.
Yep.
So basically just don't get knocked down. And I'm just like, okay, that's easier said than done, but okay. That's pretty much the game plan. It was just trying to avoid the knockdown altogether. And it was just like, because we even ended up playing in like the B League that Abe held, the second B League. And he beat me in that set too. I think it was like 7-2 or something like that. And
you played first to 7, man.
Yeah, I think it was 7s. Yeah.
God
and
damn.
it was just
Okay.
like, that was like, again, that was just the one. That was one of the characters that I could just never beat. Like whoever played them, if they knew their stuff, like I was pretty much toast.
Yeah, I remember like the shitty part about like not labbing it, right, is that like in order to lab it back then, and even in today's day and age with today's training mode tools, you'd have to do what I do and get the like you'd have to record yourself as the dummy doing what I would do as a Buki. And so you basically had to learn how to play my fucking character to practice against it. And so I remember how big a bullshit that was, because a lot of people were. I would tell people, because I was young and naive, I'd be like, just lab it, and I wouldn't. They would show me like what it would take to actually set that up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a pain in the ass for me to set up too, because I can barely do it. That was the thing at the time. It's like the vortex stuff, all those unique setups. Like if I hit you with a knockdown, I can whiff back strong, and then I can either throw a kunai or I can not. Right, and both of them are safe to EX headbutt. But if I'm wrong on this timing, then if the EX headbutt comes out, I get tagged. It autocorrects. So I'm already struggling really hard to like get frame perfect timing and get this particular setup going and make it so that way it's foolproof against someone trying to EX headbutt out of it. How the hell are you going to do that as well when you're trying to emulate it in training mode? Like that's super messed up. So I think that's another reason why I think cross-ups need to go, is because the time it takes to learn how to counter them is too hard. It's too rough. Because you shouldn't have to learn how to play another character and learn how to fight them. In your match,
I mean, I don't know. That situation's different though, because those you're talking about like ambiguous like left right mix ups with like a projectile thrown in there, like you mentioned
yeah.
cross ups. I'm like, I don't know. I just think of just like normal like jump over and like jump forward or something like that.
Oh, I'm thinking like yeah. So I guess. Yeah, normal jump cross up, you can react to it with like the parry button in 6, or you can just react block, right? Or you can at least anti-air it. Sorry, my cat's in the way. Let me get her out of the way. Stella, hey, let go of that. Oh my god. Oh shit.
What'd she take? I was like
yeah. She stuck her nail. I have this little like cushion for my keyboard for my wrists, and then she stuck her nail into it and then got stuck. And so when I grabbed her, she pulled that with her. Are you okay, honey? All right. She was walking on my taxes. So okay, all that to say is, yeah, like there's ambiguity around it, and then there's difficulty in setting it up. And I don't think that any of that stuff should be necessary for a modern fighting game, because I'm not outsmarting you. I'm just out rhythm gaming you. Like there are a lot of times like for those setups, like I oftentimes knew which direction they wanted to hit. I wanted, like for you in particular, right? Like you would always either block cross up or you would try to attack out. It would never be a block. It would never be a block normal. because you knew it enough. You knew to look for cross up because it looked ambiguous enough. You're like, I might as well assume it's a cross up, or I'm going to try to get out. And so I just 50-50'd that all the time when we were playing. And by the way, like when you're an Ibuki player, you end up grouping people into those archetypes, being like they're either going to struggle to get out because they want to try, they're going to be patient, they're going to try to block it out, in which case I can go for more elaborate stuff, or they're just going to run face first into it because they're going to try to EX headbutt out of it and I can OS it. Like Nico is in that same group too, for the record. Most Honda players, because he didn't have he wasn't comfortable blocking it out. Like I had him fucking unblockables on Honda. Like there was no way to block it out, really. So most Honda players played that exact way to get out of it, and they would just get tagged by everything. It was just getting the knockdown was the hard part.
Yeah.
So okay, cool. Let's move on past Ibuki to Makoto. So who do you think of when you think of Makoto?
Oh, Makoto, I would have to think. I think I mentioned this briefly in terms of like doing when we were talking about like the cross community kind of things. Because like when we go to Evo, or my friends from Alaska, when we went to Evo, right, they always wanted to find another region to play in like a 5v5, right? And my first Evo was Utah. Other times it was I forgot who they played. I mean, they did an Arizona one. That was late or early Street Fighter Five, first Street Fighter Five one. But there was one year when we played NorCal, and they had a Makoto player that pretty much walked through like half of our squad. And I want to say, who was that? I'm trying to think of who it was because we didn't know. I didn't know who it was at the time, and it wasn't until later that I found out who it was. Who was? I think it's because there was BJ Unchained, and then he had a brother, right? Kevin, something like that.
Kelvin Jong? You talking about the
Yeah,
cross second player?
I think that might be him.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say that was him because I just that's the one moment where I remember we were playing in that 5v5 and like we had beaten a couple of their other players, and then he would step up to the plate, and then Makoto was just washing the rest of us, and we're just like, because a lot of times it would be like, I think he went through the first time, and then we like ran it back, and then I think they put him up first, and then he beat like three of us, and then at that point we're in an uphill battle anyway with like our last two standing, so. That's the one that I remember. It was NorCal Makoto is what we called him at the time. He was like, "Who's that NorCal Makoto?"
Okay. Trying to think of who that. It might be Kelvin.
Yeah, I think that's his name. That makes me want to look it up.
Sure.
Uh,
For Arizona Makotos, the best one that we had was his name is Reese Gilder. He had a bunch of different gamer tags. I think he was mainly known by the Duke at the beginning, and then he ended up changing it to Freestyle, which, at that in that day and age, like I don't think any of us really were famous by our gamer tags outside of like a couple of us. Um, and Reese is unique in that I've talked about him on the podcast like 4 times already because he's the guy who got
yeah,
me into fighting games essentially, or into competitive fighting games essentially. Um, and he started with Gen in 4, then picked up Blanca and Cammy, and then settled on Makoto. And then wouldn't. I just watched like 2 weeks ago. I just watched a video of his old Makoto because I'm still subscribed to his YouTube channel, and so I like was scrolling through my YouTube feed and saw an old match of his playing Makoto, and it was pretty. It looked dangerous then, and it was dangerous when I was watching it 2 weeks ago because it like the decisions he would make would always like be very based on like efficient meter and keeping someone in the corner with Makoto, but he would also move at a really fast clip, like
hmm
really really fast, which is really good for Makoto because her dash darts around and stuff like that. So yeah, I Makoto. I wanted to play her when she first came out, but I ended up with Ibuki instead, and then Reese ended up with Makoto, and man, he made her really fearsome.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just took a brief look, and yeah, it was Kelvin. Yeah,
Okay. Kelvin Jong.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was him for sure. I think at the time he had longer hair, and just like like I said, we didn't know who it was, and we weren't taking people's real names at the time, so it was just like
It makes
NorCal
sense that he plays
Makoto.
Makoto actually, because he became the cross Tekken player for a while, like one of the best cross Tekken players. And in that game, everybody has shit walk speed and really fast dash speed, just like Makoto. Most of them do. Most of the Tekken characters do, at least. So okay, cool. Let's move on. Let's go all the way up to Seth. That way, it'll be a clean 8, and then the next time or actually, we'll just do Dudley. We'll call it a Dudley, and we'll talk about Seth next time. So any memories of Dudley?
Uh, I mean, Dudley, yeah, that was probably the. I don't know if we really call it a rivalry because I think he beat me more than I beat him. It was definitely Mocha Latte. Um, but I do, the times that I did beat him, I think were really kind of what kind of settled my, I don't know, I guess my status in the scene almost, as like a kind of like a gatekeeper, and always just kind of like because I would never consider myself at the upper echelon of the players here, right? Like I just never I didn't have the time to put in that much time where I felt like I could reach that level. So I was like, for me personally, like I was okay being like a B level type fighter or B level type player in our scene,
Mhm.
and that's kind of what I always felt was just like for the most part, I'm probably gonna lose to guys like you or Mocha or whoever was at the the top of our scene at the time, right? But occasionally I'll have my moments, and a lot of those moments were against him, Mocha Latte in particular, and yeah, I think there was a Ranbat where I beat him. Like we had our first match, and I beat him, and people were just like, I was like, hey Abe, I won, and then everybody's like looking around like, what the? So you put him in losers? I was like, yeah.
Yep.
It was just like, yeah, and then I was the only person to beat him in the B League, the B League, the B League tournament, the second one, when I made it into that, and I was the only person that took a set off of him out of the first of 7. And I remember when I won that set, and I was just like, hey, Abe, I won the set, and they're like, what? You beat Mocha Latte in the first of 7? I was like, yeah. It's like, those are like kind of like my crowning achievements in my Street Fighter 4 Prime locally was basically beating him, and that kind of established my place as people were kind of like, I gained some type of, like, I guess, respect and notoriety for being like the person that could beat him like regularly besides like the top players.
I had no idea it was a first of 7. That's
I think it was the first of 7.
Wow. Yeah,
because it's first of 7, and then like if you tied, then you went up to 10. Like the first
yeah, it was win by 2 or something.
Yeah, the first leagues, like, yeah, it had to be win by 2,
up
and
to
then
10.
I think there was I forgot who said it was. It was like, I think it was Isaac and somebody else, and they just kept on going back and forth, and then I think eventually they settled, and then that's why the next year they stopped it at 10.
Right.
Because
it took for fucking
me and Kevin,
ever.
because me and Kevin
right?
ended up, me and Kevin, tied, and then he ended up winning 10-9, and that that was put in because of the fact that they had that one first set in the first B League or A League, just kept on going, and it was just like, somebody win.
Yep, I remember being there for that one, being like, oh my god, they're still going. But yeah, I had the same reaction when I found out you beat Mocha. In the same way that I had the advantage matchup wise against Honda, I had the advantage matchup wise against Dudley, and I remember basically running a train on Mocha until right around that B League. Like a little bit before that, he started getting really good, and to the point where, like, I still look back on that and I'm like, I don't really think I played footsies with him very often. I just kind of bullshitted my way into a knockdown, and then Dudley, I had a double loop on Dudley in particular, so I could kill him in like 3 combos. So like, it wasn't like he did end up getting way better than me, and so he beat the shit out of me in that B League that you beat him in, if I recall correctly. And up until that point, I had been like pretty stable against him, and pretty much always beaten him due to the matchup issues. Same with Thrasher Mike, who also played Dudley. Same with Brainpipe Dana, who also played Dudley. There's a lot of people who played Dudley in our scene.
Yeah, Jeff did at one point too, I think.
Jeff did too. Jeff pioneered that people's elbow with Dudley, I think. No one else uses it like that. He does that with every character he plays, though. That character, there are parts of that character where I'm like, he struck me as like evil Ryu but budget, where like it was big counter poke into big burst damage, and for Dudley it'd be EX machine gun blow, and then you'd have to eat the overhead high low, right? And for Ryu it'd be like that, you'd eat a low forward FADC into an axe kick combo and into the next high low throw dive kick mix up. You'd always end up in the corner, basically. You'd always end up in the corner with some bullshit combo. So
yeah, it's like, I don't think you can talk about Dudley either without bringing up Smug. Like, I feel like there's a lot of parallels between, because I know Mocha, really, followed Smug too, and it's just like, there's a parallel there, but both kind of, I think, in kind of like their meteoric rise, right? It's like Smug kind of came out of nowhere with the scene, came in with Dudley, and was just like, everybody was like, what the hell is this damage, and what he's doing with this character. And Mocha kind of had a similar kind of rise with our scene from winning the qualifier, and coming out of nowhere, really, because I remember that qualifier, because again, that's I talked about that before, like that's the one where I got put in the losers by Dragon Ninja, like probably my worst match on stream ever, and I had to fight my way to Chiron, and I lost, and that's when Mocha ended up winning that, and I think he came in kind of endorsed by who was on our scene, Frenchie.
Yes. Yeah.
He came in
like
and he's like
group of online players that I think we're all pushing for each. It's kind of what we talked about with X-Band last time, where it's like a lot of online players didn't get credit in the Street Fighter 4 era. early on, and I guess later on in this particular case, where it took a while for us to like adopt them because we were like, this is just an online player. It took a long time for us to like really learn how to respect that.
Yeah, because that was one thing I remembered from that qualifier too. Was I remember Frenchie at one point saying like he's gonna win this like early on. I don't know if it was like early on during the day or whatever, but I remember at one point he just said like he's like Mocha Latte is gonna win this. Like you guys aren't prepared for this or something like that. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And when he kind of went through and like did his thing, I was just like, oh, okay, this guy's like somebody new to our scene that's like super legit.
Yeah, and it's always interesting seeing how a scene reacts to a new player coming in and beating everybody. I've seen it, I've seen it go a bunch of different ways. Like with when Yusuf came, like people adopted that. People adopted him, and it was just like he was part of the group and stuff. But when like we've had like I remember when Akita joined the scene, it took a long time for people to like really give him credit. And I don't really know. I don't really know what the answer is going to be going forward with online, where nowadays the online players are likely going to have an advantage over the offline players, right? So maybe that stigma goes away. Maybe we be a little bit less, a little bit more accepting for different people coming from different ways of experiencing the game.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we talked through a total of 7 characters out of Street Fighter V's like 85 character roster. So basically we're going to keep doing this game with future guests and just kind of go through it. It's just a good jumping off to talk about whatever, really, to just kind of talk about stories or talk about like recollect our different stories from different game eras. And it's a good framing device, I think. So, cool. I don't think we've got much more to talk about today. Maybe tune in next week, and Velociraptor will be on. But I thought we did a pretty good job for coming up with an episode in 15 minutes. We talked about a lot of shit today.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just like you said, the Cammy footage came out, and him working for Event Hubs is just like he gave me the heads up earlier in the day. He was like, "Hey, are we still on?" Because I heard that there might be some footage coming out. Sure enough, like I happened to be on Facebook at 4 o'clock, and I was like, "Oh, Street Fighter just posted Cammy footage," and I was just like, "Well, I guess we're gonna have to just, we'll just do the show without him."
Wing it.
You gotta he's gotta go do work.
This happened last time too, though. Like all the good news seems to happen on Tuesdays, literally like right when we're taping. Like, didn't we had like the Evo Street Fighter 6 announcement happen, and I think there was some gameplay footage that got posted once for Zangief or something. Man, we're just like right in the thick of things, I think, as far as timings go for broadcasts.
Yeah, it's fighting game Tuesdays, man. It's just like it might be, like we'll see if we can reschedule him, and we'll kind of go from there. Otherwise, it might be a situation where we gotta like talk to him on like a little off time.
Yeah, that's the beauty of a podcast format. Well, for that podcast, you can find us on Spotify if you search for Absolute Guard, youtube.com/Spiral Series, and twitch.tv/Spiral Series for the VODs. Our Twitter is absolute_guard, and feel free to reach out to us on there or leave any comments on any of the platforms to give us some feedback on what you'd like to hear. As you can tell, we're trying new things all the time, and so if there's anything in particular that resonates, let us know, and we'll keep redoing it. So thanks very much, guys. Or Guy. Thanks, Benny, and thanks for our audience for tuning in. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Talk to you later.